Hello, I'm Dr. Alberto Villoldo, and welcome to the Shaman's View. Today I'd like to speak to you about the Earthkeepers, the daily rituals of the Earthkeepers. How do we sustain and protect our Great Mother through our actions every day? And it's the job of the shaman to become the steward of the earth, not the looter and pillager of the planet that cuts down the lumber and thinks that animals are meat or food. What a concept! But the Earthkeeper is the one who is the caretaker, the steward of the garden, the protector of the garden. If you don't protect and maintain your garden, it becomes overgrown with weeds, and the trees are not producing fruit. And that's what happened today to our planet. So I'd like to share with you some of the daily rituals that I go through and that I engage in, that I can then practice the stewardship that I've committed my life to in this journey through the earth. So for me, it begins in the morning. Every morning I wake with a rising sun and I greet the sun. I do a sun salutation. Not so much the yogic one that I also occasionally do, but I greet the light, the return of the light, and the waking up of the earth that is happening around me. So energetically, I'm connecting already with the dawn and with all of life, the birds that are beginning to chirp and the dew and the morning mist. And so that first connection is essential. Then when I leave the house, I check out the nature around me. And the first thing I will do is to see if there's anything that is out of place. Has the wind blown some garbage across the street? Is there anything that I can pick up along the way to keep the earth clean? And I'm always picking things up. I generally carry a bag in my back pocket where I will put trash that I pick up along the trail or along the way to what I happen to be doing that day. So I want to be sure that I'm not only not polluting, but that I'm contributing to the solution with the earth. The next thing that I will do is to say a prayer. So I am very lucky that I walk out of my house into a garden, and I will go to one of the corners of the garden, and I will open sacred space, open Viracocha, call on the four directions, and ask for balance to this piece of land that I'm in, balance to my garden. And I imagine the garden becoming luminous and radiant, and then balance to our valley. And visualize the valley becoming luminous and radiant and in balance, and balance to all of the mountains surrounding us. And then balance to that quadrant of the earth, and then balance to the entire planet. So in my sitting and creating balance in my garden, this is radiating to bring peace, harmony, and balance to the entire planet. Don't underestimate the power that you have to bring peace, to meditate peace into the earth, into the world. Part of my shamanic training had to do with going through my initiations and the tests that you had to pass after your initiation. One of them was making it rain. And I remember I became really good at stopping the rain, but I could not really call the rain. And then I discovered that the key to it was asking for the rain to come for the greater good of the garden, and not just to make me wetter because we needed water in our house. So at a certain point, you need to become the rain, to become one with the clouds and the water, and feel and see this gift coming to the earth through you and with you as you're part of it. That you're not separate any longer. You're not praying for rain, but you're becoming rain. You're not praying for peace in the earth. You're becoming peace. You're not praying for light, because that still implies a separation between you and spirit, but you're becoming the light. And that radiates, creates a standing wave in the field that will radiate through the entire planet. So during the day, I want to be sure that I tune in to the rhythm of the earth. The rhythm of the earth is called by science the Schumann resonance, and it's about 6 to 8 cycles per second, closer to 8. It's changing right now. So this is the heartbeat of the earth. It's quite rapid, 8 times per second. And I try to tune in to this heartbeat of the earth, and then my brain waves and train to that heartbeat of the earth. So it quiets my brain down to a very, very slow, meditative, contemplative state. And I follow it with the breath to quiet my breath, to breathe in that wind that comes from the Amazon, that pure, fresh, green, saturated with oxygen wind that blows up from the Amazon, and exhale. And as I exhale, my breath also becomes one with the wind. And with the next breath, I understand that I'm breathing the same breath that the Buddha breathed, or that the Christ breathed, or that the shamans of old took into themselves and released again. So I connect. I connect with the breath, with the wind, with the Amazon, with the directions. And I do that 2 or 3 times during the day, because it's easy to get lost in Zoom meetings and in writing a book or teaching a class and becoming part of the computer. I want to not have that be my palette. I don't want to have that be the canvas that I engage the world through, but rather through the wind, through the water. And then when it begins to rain, the very first thing I do is to run outside. Not to run inside, not to get wet, to run outside to get wet. A little bit wet. I don't want to get drenched, but I want to give thanks for the rain. Thank you. And the wind picks up, and I want to go outside or be outside with the wind and take that fierce, ferocious, amazing wind of storm into my lungs and say, yes, I am a storm also, not just this peaceful, tranquil wind. So that I and the ecosystem are one. So there's no steward that's doing stewardship to a garden, but the garden and I are one. And in doing so, I am able to return to that original garden, to that original state that we all had before we were cast out of Eden. And in doing so, I return to that place of deep wisdom. This is the nature of the garden. Remember, the garden had a tree in it, which was the tree of wisdom, the tree of knowledge, and it was guarded by a serpent. The serpent was coiled around the trunk of that tree, and the job of that serpent, that's the serpent of the Kundalini, that's the serpent of consciousness. The job of that serpent was to offer us that fruit of that tree of wisdom. Now, in our mythology, the woman sinned, but that's the job of the woman, not to sin, but to receive the wisdom. The feminine is the one that receives that wisdom and shares it with the masculine. But we were not able to contain that in our Western story of creation, so we were lost. We were cast out of that relationship to the earth. And at that point, we were no longer the gardeners, the stewards of the earth, but we became the spoilers. We believed that everything in the earth had been created for our pleasure, that we owned all of the food in the planet belonged to us, not to the bees, not to the bugs. We had pesticides and insecticides to drive them away because it all belonged to us. What a mistaken thought. So I want to make sure that I and the garden are one, and that I can sit underneath that tree of wisdom and taste that sweet fruit and know that it's nourishing me. The wisdom is immediate and available to you once you're in the garden. And this is the stewardship that the shaman does. The shaman becomes a steward by becoming the gardener and the garden. There's no longer a separation between you and that heavenly place that was offered to us, that's still available to us today, that we can journey back to when we recognize what our nature is, when our instinct becomes true, when we recover our natural self. But today what I'd like to share with you is a fire ceremony that we can do together to accelerate this process of return to stewardship that we're being invited to do around the earth. Today, the humanity has become a plague. We've become a parasite. And in the same way that the body will eliminate a parasite, Gaia, the mother, the planet, recognizes that we're destroying thousands of species, that we are truly, literally a pathogen. We're not symbiotic, we're parasitic, and it's beginning to eliminate us unless we make that quantum leap into stewardship to become that new human that's possible today. So I'd like to invite you to join me in a small fire ceremony. If you have a candle, please take a moment, get your candle, and get a small stick. Get a little stick that you can put in the fire, and take a moment to do this. If you need to retrieve a candle or retrieve a stick, you can do that. And in this ceremony, what we want to do is to announce our return to the garden, to announce it to Spirit that we are the caretakers of the garden again. So every morning I take probiotics. I take probiotics to help restore my intestinal flora. And I like to remember that the mind of Gaia, the mind of the planet, is bacterial. Bacteria were here long before we were. They were here 2,000 million years ago. We only appeared 2 million years ago. The mind of the planet are all of these microscopic creatures that live symbiotically with each other. And we know that today Gaia is insisting that we become stewards, or we're going to be eliminated. So every morning when I take my probiotics, I don't swallow them. I open up the capsule, put it in water, and wait for 5 or 10 minutes until they rehydrate and come back to life. And then I pray over them. I hold them and I say to them, welcome into my body. I want you to know that I am part of the solution. I'm not part of the problem. I am part of the solution, so that they will be beneficial to you. Otherwise, you're plugging into the mind of the planet that might recognize you as part of the problem. So be sure you enlist the help of these fantastic beings that live harmoniously within us and that are 90% of who we are. So now that you have a candle and your small stick, what I'd like to invite you to do is to, in your own way, with your own words, is to make your commitment to life, to the earth, to the mother, to become the steward and her steward. You see your own words silently blow that commitment, that dedication. Reaffirm that agreement that you have with life, that you are a steward, that you are giving more than you're taking, that you are part of the system, that you're one with this system. You're not an observer of it, you're not going for a walk to connect with nature. You are nature, you are natural. It's who you are, that we are the children of the same mother, all of us in this planet. Reaffirm that commitment and then hold it to the fire. Calling on the fire to bear witness. This commitment that you make helps you to align behind the role of the Earthkeeper, to become the steward. And then it's not something that you do, but it's who you are. Everything that you do then is for the greater benefit of the mother, for the keeping and the caring of the mother, for the return to the mother, and asking her to mold you and to shape you and transform you into that new human that is being born in the planet today, Homo Luminous, the fulfillment of the ancient prophecies that we have the opportunity to become. And in doing so, we will be the caretakers of our mother, as she will be the one that loves us and protects us and furthers our growth and our journey through this world. Thank you for joining me today, and walk in beauty.